balloons, bazookas, boobies, bosoms, boulders, cans, hooters, knockers, melons, honkers, jugs, rack, tatas, tits, torpedoes, guns, bust, doorknobs, coconuts, and our favorite one, the girls. Welcome to the All About Breastfeeding show, where your host, Lori, highlights mothers just like yourself and goes beyond the surface questions and digs deep so they share not only their joys and happiness in their daily breastfeeding life, but also their pain and struggles and how they worked through them.
Episode number 171. Welcome to All About Breastfeeding, the place where the girls hang out. I am your host, Lori Jill Eisenstadt, IBCLC, which stands for International Board Certified Lactation Consultant, and I help moms with breastfeeding. This week, I would like to tell you the story of two moms that I have recently visited with and had consults with. The first one is a mom who had taken my breastfeeding class. Actually, both of them are moms who had taken my breastfeeding class. And they took the class probably sometime in late January. I remember both the couples because they had good questions and both their husbands attended and they were all really into the class. One of the guys even took notes on his iPad. I was quite impressed. One of their baby was born pretty close to due date. And this mom, Luann, well, she was actually doing quite well. She took what she learned in class, combined that with the excellent help she had during her hospital stay, and she really got off to a great breastfeeding start. She did schedule a consult though because while breastfeeding was going well, she still had some degree of nipple soreness and she knew from taking the class that this should not be. So I observed her latching her baby on, and I could see that everything actually did look pretty good. I could see why she hesitated to call me because, like she said, she felt the latch was good, and it was. Well, we let her baby breastfeed for about 10 minutes, and then I asked for her to break the latch so I could help her experiment and make a few adjustments to see if we could make it better for her. She described her overall pain level at about a 4, with 1 being no pain at all and 10 being the worst pain. She had no cracks or visual trauma to her nipples. After some experimentation, we found what seemed to work best for her. When she did this and consistently brought her baby to the breast the same way, this brought her comfort level to a 1. And we did this with 2 specific changes. The first one was to make sure that her baby was fully turned to the breast, as she had had her baby slightly on his back, which required him needing to turn his head over his neck in order to latch on. And I told her that it would be much better to have her baby fully tucked into and facing her chest, so I like to say belly to belly. The other change we made was because she was large-breasted, each time she latched her baby on, she then pressed her thumb down on her breast because she was afraid that it was obstructing her baby's ability to breathe. But each time she did this, she changed the placement of her nipple, which started out further back in her baby's mouth. And every time she compressed her breast tissue and kind of pulled the tissue towards her chest, what this did was pull the nipple closer to her baby's gums, causing that pinching, biting sensation. Once she stopped doing that, it made a huge difference. 2 days later, she called me up to say she had no more pain whatsoever and was thoroughly enjoying breastfeeding. Lots of moms compress their breast tissue right above the baby's nose because they're afraid their babies can't breathe. This is a normal concern and actually quite a valid concern. I do find, though, that some adjustments can now place the baby's nose in a more favorable position, and this eliminates the need for this concern. What's so interesting about Luann is that I imagine that if she kept doing this and her pain level was a 4, she may not have continued breastfeeding. Or maybe she would have, but it would have felt like a chore to her, something she was doing just because she felt it was the best for her baby, and yet not something that Luann would have enjoyed. For my regular listeners, and the moms who come see me, I often say I'm quite greedy in that way because if at all possible, I wish for breastfeeding to be totally comfortable and very enjoyable for the moms. The second mom that I wanted to tell you about, well, her name is Beth. And I was not surprised that Beth had called me for a consult because she was pretty nervous before the breastfeeding class. She sent me several emails, asked me a lot of questions during the class when I'm used to people getting information and starting to settle in a little bit and say, oh, this makes sense, and feeling more confident. Well, Beth continued to be anxious during the class. And once it was over, on her way out, she said to me she did learn a lot, but she was still very, very nervous. One of her concerns were she did have good support from her husband, but her own mother, who would be spending a lot of time with her postpartum, well, her mother has already told her that she does not believe in breastfeeding, and she was going to be her main support person postpartum. And Beth knew of no one else in her family who had even tried breastfeeding. I encouraged her to attend a breastfeeding support group at her local hospital where she was having her baby, or possibly check out the local La Leche League, but she just wasn't sure if she wanted to do this or not. So she had a vaginal birth with no complications. She said that breastfeeding was causing her some soreness and she had a crack in one of her nipples. She was considering scheduling a consult, but all this changed after her first pediatric visit when her baby was diagnosed with jaundice severe enough to be readmitted to the hospital 4 days after hospital discharge. Jaundice, I have quite a few shows on it, but it is basically a condition that's caused by elevated bilirubin levels in the newborn's blood. Well, in the hospital, they had her pumping and bottle feeding. And by the time she came home, she had two main concerns. So when she called me for the consult, she said her first one is her fear of causing nipple pain when she had reached the point of healing nicely at this particular time. And her second concern was quite valid. She said she was scared to return to exclusive breastfeeding. She was told that breastfeeding caused her baby's jaundice, and while she did want to breastfeed, this fed right into her nervousness and anxiety. I'm really sad to say that this message was reinforced during her baby's hospital stay. Beth received little help with breastfeeding during her stay. However, she was strongly encouraged to pump and bring her milk to the hospital for her baby. She was praised for the volume of milk she was pumping, and she really did feel good about this and gained a lot of confidence in her ability to make enough milk for her baby. So I'm grateful for that. While I'm happy that she was encouraged to pump by the hospital staff and that she was praised for the volume of milk she was collecting, I am kind of unhappy that during the 4 days she was there, only one person sat with Beth for just about 10 minutes to talk about the benefits of breastfeeding. They assisted with latch. This person gave her a few tips, said the latch looked good. However, they only allowed her to feed for 15 minutes. Then they said she had to top off that feeding with a bottle of breast milk. Well, Beth left the hospital feeling very unsure of breastfeeding, and her confidence level to feed her baby was pretty much in the toilet. What would I have wanted? Well, I would have loved for Beth to have received additional education about jaundice and why her baby was jaundiced and what kind of jaundice her baby did have. Exactly what it means and what she could do to turn it around. I would have loved for her to have been encouraged more to breastfeed during her stay. If they were going to recommend supplementing, I would have loved for her baby to have greater access to the breast and an intake check after a full feeding from both sides for several feedings to see if supplementing was actually warranted. What else would have been great? Well, if it was explained to Beth that her baby had breastfeeding jaundice, which happens when your baby does not get enough milk. She could be told that the way to turn this around is by ensuring that her baby has a good feeding every feeding. This problem can easily and rather quickly be solved by feeding pumped breast milk through a bottle. The breastfeeding mother needs a lot more help than just being told to pump and bottle feed. If I had my druthers, an IBCLC should have been called in to provide a full assessment for Beth and her baby. This complete evaluation typically takes an hour or so under the best of circumstances and longer, and it could possibly mean a few meetings if there are greater challenges. Here is what I find the typical scenario would be. The baby would have gained weight from all the supplementation during the hospital stay. The bilirubin levels would have been reduced to a normal level for a baby that age and weight, and they would be sent home. As far as the hospital staff is concerned, the problem is fixed. Now, when mom returns home and is given the okay to go back to breastfeeding, she either is too worried and continues to pump and bottle feed and gives up on the breastfeeding, or she may go back to breastfeeding. This may work very well for her, and breastfeeding for her from here on in is going very well. However, if the same poor feedings occur that brought them into the hospital continue to occur, it is likely for what to happen? Well, at her next pediatric visit, her baby will have either showed no weight gain or not enough, or will have lost even more weight. This will happen because something was awry with the milk transfer and no one picked up on this being the primary issue. And when she is now exclusively breastfeeding and not supplementing, if there was something going wrong with breastfeeding, you're going to see a baby that's not doing too well. What I would have liked is for Beth needed to be told that her baby's jaundice was caused by an inadequate amount of breast milk. She needs to be told that there are many reasons it's so important that her baby get a normal volume of milk, and that it's not only about the weight gain. This is needed because the milk causes an increase in baby's stools, which help to get rid of the buildup of bilirubin. So, if an increase in breast milk can solve this problem, then the staff and Beth need to be confident that her baby is breastfeeding well and getting enough milk per feeding before she's discharged. When I met with her, I was pleased to find that her baby was back to birth weight, well fed, and jaundice was no longer an issue, and she had a great milk supply. After watching her latch her baby on, demonstrating a few changes, her baby just kind of hung out at the breast. Since I ruled out any oral or breast or nipple issues, and her supply was excellent, I suspected her baby was just waiting for that flow to happen, just as easily as it does with the bottle. I encouraged her to do some breast compression to see if we could interest her baby in sucking. It took about 15 minutes of on and off breast compression and trying, and very soon the baby showed an interest in breastfeeding, responded to the compressions, and was willing to breastfeed. And after a few more times and breast compressions, her baby just decided to breastfeed all on her own without needing encouragement from the breast compressions. Overall, we worked together for another 45 minutes. Her baby was consistently latching on each time she tried. By the time she latched her baby onto the second side, it was like Beth was a pro. She could sit up and latch her baby on. She could lay back. She could side lie and latch her baby on. Her baby was a pretty mellow baby and let us do a lot of practicing. I have to say, though, this does not always happen or happen so easily. Some babies, they are what I call a 0 to 10 baby, and when they wake up, they want to eat, and they want to eat now. And other babies, they just have lots of patience. They're awake, they're aware, they're an alert, but they just have patience. I met with Beth for about an hour and a half, And by the time the consult was over, she was smiling and seemed to really have a boost of confidence. I was glad that she would be having a pediatric visit 2 days later, because what would happen is her baby would be weighed, and my instruction to Beth were to call me after her pediatric appointment. She could fill me in on all the details related to breastfeeding and let me know what the baby weighs. Based on her feedback, I might make changes to the care plan, or perhaps I might tell her that since everything is going so well, that she should just check in with me once or twice over the next 2 weeks, and if all is well, we would then be happily parting ways. A few days later, Beth sent me an email with the weight of her baby and a rundown of all that has been happening with breastfeeding. Her baby gained appropriately. She was really happy about that. And she said that most of the time, latching her baby on is fairly quick and fairly easy, and feedings have been great. Once in a while, she says, there's a bit of frustration as it takes a few extra minutes for her baby to latch on and settle in. I assured her that at this age, this is normal. She took a picture of her laying down and breastfeeding, and she said she just loves breastfeeding now. And she's able to get in some really good naps with this laying down position. Remember earlier I had told you that Beth's mother did not really believe in breastfeeding? Best of all, she said in her email that her mother has been asking her some good questions like, well, how do you know that they're getting enough milk? How do you know how much milk you have? And how do you know how much milk your baby did take and what's left over? And also, what if she doesn't get enough? Because her mother kept saying that she still did not quite understand how her baby got milk, Beth finally did a hand expression demo that had her milk squirting in a lovely stream and coming out several openings in her nipple. While her mother has told her that she doesn't quite understand how this whole breastfeeding thing is working, she seems to accept the fact that the baby can get milk from the breast, and she also had to admit to Beth that both she and her baby seem quite happy and relaxed, and that something she's doing is working right. Well, that is likely the best compliment that Beth will ever receive about her breastfeeding, and I am so happy for this. I hope you enjoyed listening and learning from these informal case histories I brought to you today. On Monday, I have, believe it or not, you're getting a heads up on Monday's show. It is going to be a part 3 from Jen Foster's interview. I had really wanted to talk to her about tandem nursing, and once we got talking, we kind of forgot about that. And I realized this when I started editing the show. So I contacted her and I said, guess what? We really didn't talk about tandem nursing. Do you think we can spend a few more minutes talking with me about it? And she said yes. But the funny thing is that that's what we were supposed to be talking about for part of the show, and it just totally slipped my mind. So we recorded a separate session, and I will play for you on Monday that session, along with some other thoughts and information I have on tandem nursing. I would love to get a few moms into the Breastfeeding Moms online support group, so I will keep the registration open until Monday, May 15th. This is a virtual breastfeeding mothers group that I would love for you to join. It's for soon-to-be moms and new moms, where I facilitate a group that covers many different educational topics, as well as have the group be an open group where moms just get to talk about everything that's going on in their breastfeeding lives. All you need to do is go to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz and you will see a link to register for the group. I can't wait to meet you and spend each week with you. Until the next show, bye-bye.